Welcome back to another video on our BMW E82 drift car. For those of you just tuning in, this car was originally purchased completely crashed, sight unseen. We were missing chassis rails, was completely stripped to almost barely any bolts left. Since then, we've replaced the chassis rails. We've put a new engine in there. We have been working tirelessly to get this car finished. So we're going to button up as much as we can in the engine bay today, try and actually get some of the wiring done, and if we're even lucky, possibly get it cranking. First thing on today's agenda is going to be wrapping up the basics, things like starter motor, rocker cover gaskets. Going to go get some spark plugs from Autobarn in Clayton. So going to be a big one. Mainly want to get rid of, or at least everything at the back of the engine done. All right, now if you didn't know, these starter motors go on with Torx bits, Torx bolts, whatever everyone likes to call them. But you can actually do these up with a 10mm. These do go in from the back and they are an absolute pain, but with a flexi head spanner makes things a lot easier. Unfortunately, it's just very time consuming, but luckily this doesn't have to come on and off very often, we hope anyway. It also doesn't help that they come with some massively long bolts. All right, one job done. Next, we're just going to quickly bolt on a positive cable, because obviously I've moved all the wiring, if you watched the last video. So now the whole loom for the engine is completely on this side of the car. So completely away from the turbo, all the heat. Now, I do this on most of my, obviously, race cars, because the last thing you want is an electrical fire, because that in essence means it is game over for the day, and put your car back on the trailer and go home. So you waste a whole lot of money preparing, getting to the event, and then over something as simple as a hot engine bay, you could pretty much lose it all. Okay, next up is this positive cable that needs to run into the loom from the alternator. So just a bolt here on the back. All right, now I'm not sure what's going on with this cable, because there's already an alternator cable on here, but that runs directly to the starter motor. So this does have like an extra terminal, and obviously some wires that do run into the loom. So look, we're going to put it on for now, and I guess if anything changes later on, I mean, you know, we haven't even gotten started on the wiring just yet. It's only the beginning, so outside of obviously getting the engine loom into the car. So if for some reason we don't need this cable, we'll just take it off later, or maybe we can take the connections off and pop them into our relay box that we plan on putting in the car. Next part should be quite simple, just this little bung that goes on the back of the engine. We're going to use this to run our water lines to the turbo, so hopefully we can get this on without too many issues. All right, some of you might watch some of the things I do in today's video and not agree, but we're just trying to get this car running, driving, as a basic vehicle before all the drift modifications are added, just so I can get the car home, and I'll be a lot more comfortable doing all these modifications once it's in a safe place in my garage. So just going to add some RTV, I think it's called. I mean, I pretty much use it for everything. So ultra grade advanced formula, gasket maker, and this should pretty much go on once and never come off again. So quite a simple part, just in a very difficult place. We'll go with the top bolt first. Hopefully that helps. Get this aligned. Oh, look at that first go. All right, now that's the first bolt started. We'll get the second one going. Might have to eat my words. That was a little bit easier than what I was expecting. So this is just one of those little annoying parts that we can forget later on very easily. You know, sit there, put our intake manifold on, and then have to rip it all off again. So let's make sure it's on there nice. Look, I might not even be running water in this for now, but it's always good to just make sure that it's sitting here. All right, another job done. Let's get moving on to the next part. Next part is the waterline adapter. So this has been built in a way to adapt the heater hose to then adapt to our turbo lines. And that looks nice and tight. Just going to pop a little sealant on there. This is just your hydraulic pressure pipe sealant. So I know everybody likes using, you know, specialized fittings and things like that, but I've always used these special hydraulic fittings and I have never had a leak. That should be fine. Another job finished. Next fun little task is going to be removing the bung that we've made for the turbo. And look, this is mainly because we're not going to be running the turbo in the current setup. We just literally want to get the car running, so we're just going to replace that one there, just with the standard banjo fitting that doesn't have the hole on the back. Just get that tightened up. We're also going to make sure this fitting here is nice and tight. So this is the oil pressure line for the Vanos unit. All right, another line done. Next task, just going to get this front turbo line on as well. I'm just going to put that in a position where we can get to it from on top, so if we ever have an issue with it, we can reach it. Perfect, and just like the back water line, just a bit of hydraulic thread sealant. All right. All right, so what I've decided for now is I want to have the lines on, and I'm just going to get a little bit of pipe, bypass it like that, and then we won't have any issues. Again, that's if I decide to actually put water in it, because currently we just want it running. Just going to get our big shifter. And tighten that up. Perfect. We'll just check all of our wiring connections. So that there goes into the fuel rail, actually, the fuel rail wiring loom. So we've got to wait for that. These are all on. We'll go over all of these bolts, or sensors, I should say. Yep, they're all in there nice and tight. Yep. Already tightened them down. So we've got starter motor wires. Need to figure out what that one there is. Maybe either idle valve. No, actually, yeah, might be the idle valve. But what we'll do is we'll leave all this wiring down here, because that will have to get to underneath the engine. And then what we'll do is we'll make sure that our injector lines, where are they? There they are. Injector wiring, I should say. Run up and around the back of the engine. Yeah, we'll cable tie those just a little bit later. Right now they can stay there like that. And I think we're going to start getting this intake manifold on. So after checking and double checking, we've got our starter motor on, we've got our NOx sensors connected all back into the loom, we've got our Vanos unit cable that's going to connect into the fuel injector harness there. We have our front cam sensor, our crank sensor all in and connected. We finished off that oil feed. We've blocked off that oil feed for the turbo, so now it's just a standard engine in essence. Oil pressure switch and wiring. Yeah, look guys, I actually don't think that there's much more that needs to be done, so I'm quite confident that it's time for the intake manifold. Let's get this intake manifold on. Just got to pass this hose through. Make sure we've cleared all the wiring. And well, that was a lot easier than what I was expecting. I'll take the win. Now for this, the engine's got some really weird style threads. So I'm actually using the little brass nuts that are usually on the exhaust side of the engine, because they're kind of deformed, and then once it's on, it sort of stops the bolts from coming out or loosening off. All done. And just because I know myself, I'm going to smooth all these out, because I'm probably going to cut myself. Now before we start getting the pipes on, just want to go over and see what electrical connectors are left. Got a feeling that one there might be for the air temp sensor. If it clips straight on, I'm right. Yep, straight on. Then we've got another cable here, which should be our throttle position sensor. Perfect. We've got anything else missing? Nope, that seems like we've got everything plugged in. We've also got the airflow meter over here, but we'll get to that once the airflow meter's on. Now, because the engine has had the angle changed is the reason why I had to trim this hose down. So we've lent the engine a little bit more vertical. So usually it's just on a really big slant. And I've just made the adjustment to give us some more clearance just on the opposite side of the engine bay, just to get the turbo away from the firewall and actually give the turbo some space between the engine and the valve cover. So that just means that this hose is always going to be a little bit difficult to get on. All right, thanks to the magic of YouTube, that pipe's on now. Get the clamps on. Another thing I try and do with the clamps is kind of preempt where they're going to sit once it's all done. And then what that means is I can just always make sure the clamps are accessible when they're on the car. So same as this one here, I'll just flip this one inwards. Get that idle valve back in. Now the thing is, you could use possibly the original intakes or maybe some of those silicone hoses, but just the way I want the idle valve to be done, I want it on that pipe. And I just prefer silicone hoses because obviously we're going to run the turbo. All right, let's get the airflow meter. Time to get the airflow meter on. And before I finish screwing that in, I just want to get this plug on. There we go. Okay, I think it's time to move over to the fuel system. And just so we never get these mixed up, I just got myself some heat shrink here. And what I'm going to do is cut off a couple pieces like this. I'm going to pop it over the feed line just until we get our new lines made up, just so we don't get these mixed up ever and we start running the fuel the wrong way around. I'm just going to throw those on with a bit of heat. So like this, there is absolutely no question which is the line coming from the pump. Okay, that's going to be our return. And then of course our feed. Again, just orientating the hose clips just in a way where once this is on, I'll actually be able to get to them if there's a leak later on down the track. We hope not, but I mean, we will be changing this to AN fittings a little bit later on. Okay. All right, let's see if we can get this rail in. Might have to move this hose. Yeah, that's going to be problematic. Okay, let's go around this way. Now, although we're at the stage to get this wiring installed, I'm just going to leave it there because we have to get this off so we can install all of our gaskets. Earlier in the video, I did say that I might be doing some sketchy things that you might not like, but that's okay. This is all temporary. Such things as running these fuel lines through the cabin of the car. Now, the fuel lines will in turn run through the car once we're done with it all, but they will be Teflon lines with AN fittings on them, so just get these together so we can obviously tell now which one's the feed and which one is the return. I also have seen this pretty cool file to download and 3D print, which will pretty much hold these hoses, well, the Teflon lines in place. So I'll probably do those in another video. But I want to do something similar with like all the brake lines as well. For now, I'm just going to loosely cable ties there. Like I said, this is not final, but this will definitely help us in getting the car running. So in essence, look, this is temporary. We're just going to get these lines in here for now, just so we can run fuel to and from the engine. We are using the original fuel pump. Inclined to, there's another valve on here, or another, I should say, nipple, where we can return the fuel directly into the original fuel pump. I think I'm just going to prefer running to the original place on the other side of the tank, because there is like a hump here, obviously, where the drive shaft is. I'm still not 100% sure that I'm going to stay with the original tank. I think that's going to be just a for now thing. Definitely might be looking at moving to a fuel cell a little bit later on, like my RX-7. But I guess we'll just see how we go. So now we're slowly running out of things to do. I think next we're going to get onto the rocker cover gaskets. And I actually have to re-torque the nuts that hold the cams down, because I went over one of my older videos and I didn't do it in the video, so I'm a little bit skeptical that I actually did complete that properly. But let's head over to the rocker cover gaskets. Okay, so I built this engine 5 years ago, and I was going over the video just to see if I'd done everything, and it seems like I may have missed torquing the cam nuts. So that being said, let's go Newton meters. Maybe I have, but we're just going to go over them anyway. Okay, they have all been torqued. That's great. Next step is going to be our cam cover, rocker cover. I mean, everyone's got a different name for it. But, all right, now here's the specifics. M52 and M50 use different gaskets. All right, so if you're doing this build or planning on doing this build, just keep that in mind, that if the cam cover is off an M52, you'll be getting a different type of gasket. It's for a plastic, it's plastic style. Don't use any glue on it. You don't need to. This literally sits perfectly in place. It's got a metal rib on the inside. All right, you don't put any gasket glue around the back of the cams or the back of where the holes for the cams are, okay? You literally, just like this, very, very simply. There, then you'll have one of these. So one goes in like that, perfect. All right, if you've ever bought a BMW and you've got oil down at the spark plugs, I can guarantee you about 80% of the time, it's because of these gaskets. Simple. Just get the cover on, you'll feel it, it will locate. And once it's located, we start putting the screws in. Now, I can assure you, in most cases, when you order a rocker cover gasket, you may not get these seals. They're the seals for the bolts that hold it down. Do not skimp out for that little bit extra that it's going to cost to buy them. Without them, the rocker cover or cam cover will never seal properly. Okay, simple, just the washer goes on there. That little rubber seal. And that's it. Right now, we're just going to locate everything. All right, that's the outside ones done. Okay, there's 4 more in here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, because we've modified the coil packs, okay, we're using the M52 coils and wiring. So what we need is one of these ones here is going to go on one of these 4, but we're not going to know exactly which one it goes on until I at least line up the coils and we have a look to figure it out. All right, that's the 4 of them there. I'm going to go bring the coil packs over so we can figure out which one of these needs to have the earth on it. So here's our new setup. You can see, I'll explain to you once I've got all this screwed on, that we need to get this one here. It's actually just going to screw onto there. We don't actually need it because the M52 already has a metal cover. So let's figure out what we're going to do with that one. All right, let's give that a minute. We will, however, just pop it here, there, just in case that's where we need it. Okay, that one there. And my favorite part, we're just going to tighten everything down. And then we'll get the spark plugs in. Now what you want to do is just bottom them out, and then the rubber seal does the rest. Get those ones down the back. It's the last thing we need is an engine oil leak down the back of the engine. You can see why I like using power tools. Now, let's go get our spark plugs and then we'll get the coil packs on. I can't believe I'm actually about to say this, but I have to go down to Autobarn in Clayton so I can get some engine oil and some spark plugs, come back and get all that fitted up. I guess that's the next step. Exciting time. We are down at Autobarn in Clayton. We literally have to buy the last bits and pieces that we need to get this car running. So come inside with me. Let's go pick up our stuff. What's up, guys? Thank you, Autobarn. All right, we've got our Castrol edge. We've got our brake fluid so we can start bleeding the brakes, battery terminal, and of course, spark plugs. Let's get back to the shop and let's get this car done. So we've opted for the NGKs. Okay, these are from memory. Well, there we go. Because I've got a box BKR 6EKs. A lot cheaper than the Bosch variant. And considering this is just a first startup, we're going to run with these to begin with. Okay, they're really good. They normally don't get blocked up and dirty. They always fire. So if you've got a BMW and you're having firing issues, give these a go. So this is how I get my spark plugs into place. I don't like having the socket with the rubber seal, the rubber inside, because it always gets stuck on the end of the spark plug when I'm trying to get them in for some reason. And because they're so far in there, it's always difficult. So just got one of these with the claws. I've been using this for years. And we just set it down and then just start the spark plug and it'll stop in its own due time. Good thing about these is once you get to the back, even if you can't get a straight shot, because it's flexible, you can get the spark plug in there nice and straight. Start the threads, make sure you don't cause any damage. Absolute must if you have one of these engines, in my opinion, of course. Okay. Now we get these coil packs in line. couple of these are not the right ones, obviously, because I was just using them to dummy this up. But the idea is, normally the loom would sit right over here, so, and hang out the side, and then the ignition will plug in over there. But the idea is to get this as far out of the way as possible. There it is there. So much happier being up and out of the way. In the back here, we'll also heat wrap it, and then we can get our little 10mm. That's going to go on there or on there. Goes just on there. There it is. Okay. Vanos unit. Alright, that's all the injectors connected. For our lambda sensors, which we haven't decided what we're going to do with those yet, but we'll get there. That's connected. Fantastic. All right, well, we got one in each, so bonus. Next up, we want to throw a little bit of oil in here, so I'm just going to get some plug, change the washer. I mean, it's literally like a 2-cent part. All right, this whole kit I got off eBay. I think the whole thing cost me about $6. Just change the washer. It will leak. Don't risk it. Interestingly enough, I think I can get to the sump from here. Let's give it a go. It's probably the easiest thing I've done all day. Let's get a little bit of oil in there. And we cross our fingers, we don't see any leaks under the car. I'm just going to change some of these coil packs just off camera. As far as the wiring is concerned, I don't see anything that is not connected right now, outside of obviously what's inside the car. So ECU, battery, earth, and things like that. But we'll hop over there in a moment. First, I want to get the front end that we've taken off the other car installed on this one, and we'll make it look like a normal car. Okay, here she is. Front end is on loosely, may I add, without any wiring, but of course that is something that we're going to attend to once we get home. So it has been an absolute massive day. Started out in the afternoon. It was nice and sunny. Literally the sun is going down as we speak. So it's time for me to start packing up. Unfortunately, we didn't get around to doing the wiring to get the car running in this episode. Unfortunately, it's going to have to wait for the next one. Hopefully we'll get it running before we move it or before we get it towed home. Otherwise, we're just going to have to wait till it's actually home, finish off that wiring, and hopefully we get it running there. So thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, I know this was a big one. If you could please hit that subscribe button, hit that like, helps me heaps. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next video.